Hey, Jamison. Hey, congratulations on your new film, Waking Nightmare.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm really so excited about it. Excited to be talking about it. It was like kind of not out of the blue. I knew that they were working on it, but we finished it a little bit ago, so I was really excited it came out, and I'm thrilled with the product. I hadn't seen it until Friday, until it came out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, what as an actor, what is your impression when you watch these type of films?
So, if it's a movie I'm in, it's really hard for me to get perspective on it right away. I was watching with my wife, so that was better. Like I was able to see it and like I loved my problem is that if I'm in a movie, I love it so much, and so it's hard for me to see it critically, for a little while. So having my wife there who was watching it and she was like, I'm loving this, so it was really exciting.
I always find different perspective when actors watch themselves on screen. They either really like it or they really hate themselves on screen.
Yeah, it's funny because like I feel like you know it's easy to I mean I when I want to like something, I tend to like it. I get too influenced by what I want, what I want it to be. So, I can't trust myself in that way. And then when I'm watching myself, I can be really critical, but I also like it too. I was talking to Jason Patrick about this actually at a convention recently, and I
Hmm.
think he doesn't watch his own stuff, or not for a while anyway. And I'm like, I obsess over it. No, I watch it over and over and over again.
Well, there is a reason why you do this kind of stuff. But tell us, what initially drew you to Waking Nightmare?
So Brian Farmer, who's the writer and co-director, he and I have a bit of a working relationship. I've done a few of his movies. He's had some smaller movies as he's been working up to doing a full feature, or actually he's done some features. But as I got to know him and he was building up his career, we did some smaller projects. And so when Waking Nightmare came up, he said he had this script and he was working on it. And he had me in mind for it, and he was thinking about Diane Franklin for the lead. Diane Franklin. I didn't know who Shelley Regner was. I mean, I knew she was from Pitch Perfect, but I wasn't this huge fan of hers the way I was of Diane Franklin, who I'd been sort of had a crush on since the '80s, and thought she was awesome. So. So right there, I was really interested in it. When I read the script, I was like, "This is really good." I was like, Brian, this is really good script. And he was like, oh, cool, appreciate it. He's modest, modest guy. I mean, he he believes in his work, but he was really happy to hear that I dug it. And so that's really what brought me to it. I just kind of loved it from the beginning, and it was magical sort of from the beginning because, you know, all the actors are really great in it. And I thought the ones who I worked with, Shelley and Diane, were so amazing to work with and just such talents. So it was a really amazing project for me.
I find that funny is because you were in a 1980s iconic movie, and Diane Franklin is an iconic actress from the 1980s too, and you're
Right.
both in the same film. That's awesome for you both.
Yeah, that's what was so kind of cool about it is first of all to be kind of coming into my own as an 80s icon, it feels great. Because, I'm just a guy and, I was happened to get lucky where I was, lucky. I was fortunate to be in this movie, Lost Boys, so but I feel so grateful, to be an 80s icon. And then, that Diane and I didn't ever work together in the 80s. It was this interesting thing. And we were just joking about it recently, like a couple of days ago, in text, that we hadn't worked together. And part of that is because I wasn't in the business that long in the 80s. I kind of got started later. But it was nice to be in a movie with a fellow 80s icon, especially someone who I just loved so much. I mean, I didn't ask her if she had a crush on me in the 80s, but I had a crush on her in the 80s. So
That's actually pretty funny. It's also pretty funny that I guess they name drop Lost Boys in this film. I
oh yeah,
guess
I love that.
when you actually watched that, was that a bit of a shocker? Because I know you weren't in that scene, so
Yeah, I for some reason I thought they were gonna say Goonies. It might have been Goonies in the script or something like that. Maybe they surprised us with Lost Boys. I love that. Yeah, I thought it was just like what a fun little tie-in that is, that it's like they say Lost Boys and one of the actors from Lost Boys is in it. Like, just good for them. I just feel like that's the humor of these filmmakers of Brian and Steven, that they're willing. I mean, I think that's what you kind of have to do in horror in a way, is you have to be aware of the fact that you're looking at this from a couple different dimensions. You're looking at it. You're kind of putting a stake in the ground and saying, we're in horror now too. This movie's in horror, and as a movie in horror, we're going to reference other horror movies, and it just kind of is fun and ironic that I'm in the one that they're referencing.
No, it is pretty ironic because this movie is in the horror genre. Lost Boys was in the horror genre, and it seems like you return to something that you are best known for.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because truth be known, I get a little freaked out in horror movies. I certainly did as a kid. I wasn't big into horror as a kid. For that reason, I got really jumpy, and so it was interesting that I ended up in the horror genre. But now I've done Lost Boys. I did The Blob, another horror movie, and then Bone Tomahawk a few years ago. I did, which I don't know if you've seen that, but that's a pretty gory but also pretty brilliant horror movie if you get a chance. And now with Waking Nightmare, this is like I'm firmly in the horror genre now, which is fun. I love horror fans. I mean, you're probably a horror fan, right? Or you pop culture fan in general.
I watch everything, but I do have to admit I did watch that Blob, the one that you're in. I want to
Yeah,
see about 3 dozen times. I love that movie.
right. It's a
And
cool movie. Yeah,
and I'm gonna regret it when they announce a remake or something like that because they've been talking about that for a while.
yeah. It's like, I mean, I guess we're not on firm ground when we're already a remake. From the Blob was already a remake from the '50s or whatever. So
Yeah, that is
super
true.
clean.
That is true. But
Yeah.
I love your version. I don't know. It's just something about watching the Blob, how it moves and how it just gobbles up everybody in that film is just
Yeah.
it's terrific.
It
That
was
is a
a
terrific horror film.
thanks. It was. I mean, I say thanks, but I had a small part of it. But it's like I really thought, at the time, it's another one where Chuck Russell was when he was directing that, and I just come off Lost Boys, and so we were excited to work together, and I just thought he was brilliant, and he brought something that script too. I remember kicking it around with him. I mean, not kicking it around, but just talking to him about how brilliant it was, how great it was, as a horror movie, and how kind of right on, right on target it is.
So, in your approach for acting, is it a lot different now these days than compared to when your younger part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, in certain ways, it's. I mean, the obvious things for me is that I was a teenager then, and no matter what was going on, I didn't. It's hard as a teenager when you're really kind of just learning about the world and stuff, and to understand this business, which is an even more complicated piece of the world. So I think that for me, it was a scary kind of world that I was entering into when I came in the '80s. And now it's the benefit of me being an adult and me having a lot more experience. And I think the industry is a little more it's a little more flexible. You can, we're actors, but we're also going to conventions, and that's kind of a show in and of itself that we're being a part of. And YouTube, I have, I've been doing a YouTube show of going up to Santa Cruz to look at the old, the locations of the Lost Boys shoot, and it's pretty amazing to have that kind of power to be able to just go and shoot it and then put it on YouTube and see, hey, you guys like it? You want to see more of it? It is a lot more entrepreneurial flexibility than I think there was back in the '80s. Definitely before the internet. You know.
So when you work with a young actress like Shelley here on Waking Nightmare, do you see how younger actors have a different approach now these days, or do you still see the same thing and you try to guide them in the right direction?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I generally feel like most actors now, like someone like Shelley, she has a lot of experience. She's and obviously talent, really extreme talent, and a lot of experience in a bunch of different genres. She's a triple threat, singer, dancer, and actress. And so I generally feel like people like her know much more than I ever did, and so I wasn't at all worried about her. You know, I respected her and the fact that she was, that she's part of this other genre, this the Pitch Perfect, and she's a singer, and then now being a part of the horror genre, I just respected that, and I feel like that was a cooler move than I probably would have ever been able to make. I mean, not that she was, she's not a teenager like I was, but these days, 20s, people in their 20s, they're teenagers, aren't they? They're like, it's the same thing.
Well, it is. They deem themselves the TikTok generation, so I guess it is like the teenage generation until your late 20s or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, I mean, here in the movie industry, you are kind of afforded the opportunity not to grow up as much as other people do, which can really benefit the art, but can make things complicated in life.
Well, then let's talk about your role as Jeff, the father in this film. I want to say he's a cool dad on screen. So talk about the role that you got to play, and are you like him off screen?
Um, Great. So being a dad now, and it's possible I might get emotional because when I talk about my boys, I get emotional. But I have two boys. They're 10 and 15 right now, and so something changed in me, as it changes in people when they have kids, and all of a sudden I had this ability to be nurturing, and I could be nurturing as a friend or as a fellow actor or whatever, but um, to be nurturing to your child and to be their person, that's a really amazing thing. And so I was able to bring that to this role. And I had never had that experience before. And I hadn't done a father role. It was one of the cool things when I got this. It's another thing about why I wanted to do this is that it was a dad role. And here I know how to be a dad now. And so when I was approaching it, the crazy thing is that being a dad, like I'm gonna do anything for my kids. And that's it gets horrific in this movie. I mean, that feeling, that genuine feeling of wanting to do anything for our kids becomes what the horror, in certain ways can be, becomes about without giving away too much. So um I felt like my job here as the actor is to be a dad to these to Shelley, to this character, to Jordan, and to be a strong husband to Diane's character, and I felt like that approach. I have new tools, I have new abilities, I have new emotions on that subject, and I could be a nurturing dad. And I was so excited when I watched it that I did think I came across as a cool dad. I think that is me. I think if you talk to my kids, if they're being honest, they'll say that I'm a pretty cool dad. Right now, 15-year-old, he'll be like, no way, no, you're not cool at all. But I do think I'm a pretty cool dad, and I'm certainly I'm a very loving dad. And I was able to bring that, I think, to this, which I think in a way maybe makes it more trippy and scary.
I'm curious, you're having a 10 and 15 year old in your own household. Do you let them watch your movies?
Yes, I do. My boys, so we kind of as a family sort of went through a few things a few years ago, a little bit before the pandemic, but then the pandemic, and with all of that, the wheels came off the cart, and it became this thing where we are they're responsible and they're good kids, and we are relying a little bit more on them than probably makes sense. Maybe other parents are doing that too now. So they get to watch things that are beyond their years. I think that they can handle it. I hope they're not going to become axe murderers. So I've let them watch Lost Boys. They dig Lost Boys. I let them watch this. They haven't yet watched it. I said I would cut out just my scenes, so they didn't have to watch the gore, but they want to watch the gore also.
Jamison, I know you mentioned the convention circuit before in this interview. Could you tell us about what that life is like? And do you like having people remind you as being Frog from Lost Boys?
Yeah. I when we started doing the convention scene, we started doing it in about 2005. Someone reached out to us as a cast, and we all started doing it. And that was when Corey Haim was alive, you know, and Brooke McCarter, and we had a blast doing it. First of all, it's like we went to camp back in the 80s, and we're now in this. It's like a big reunion for us, you know. So it's like we're back with these friends that we had a great times with, but that we probably, you know, we haven't seen much because our lives went different directions. And so there's, first of all, that element, you know, where we get to this great reunion and stuff. And then to begin to interface with fans, where we actually get to see fans, and it's not theoretical anymore. These are moms and dads who've shown this movie to their kids, and now this is part of their family culture. They watch this movie, you know, monthly, weekly, sometimes daily, you know, people. And it was incredible to hear that, and incredible to see people, and the emotion that they had about this movie, about Lost Boys, was just incredible to see. And it's really moved me. It's really added to my perspective on the movie. I love being a part of this, of Lost Boys, and I love the kind of you know, all honesty, the cachet that being a Frog Brother gives me in the horror genre. You know, that I can, you know, my waking nightmare can come out, and they're referencing me as an 80s icon is amazing. Is great. I feel grateful for that. But it's also the chance to, what's elevated is that it means so much to everybody, and so that's really amazing.
Are you hoping someday, maybe someday down the road, there'll be another Lost Boys again?
Yes, you know, Corey Feldman and I are trying to put together a Frog Brothers show. It's something we've been, you know, there's been in the works. It's been kicked around for a long time. Joel Schumacher was the first one who brought it up back in the 90s, back in the 80s, after the, you know, the movie was doing so well. And so we put together a pitch deck, and we're pitching that. And I really think that would be a great future of the franchise, because we don't have to remake Lost Boys. We don't have to, you know, the sequels have been really cool, but it'd be nice to take it off in a different direction where we don't have to have the responsibility of continuing that story. We can continue the Frog Brothers story and bring back some of the other actors and things like that. So that's our hope. And so that would be amazing. I hope that happens.
I certainly hope that happens too. I keep on forgetting how old I am, because I had a friend who I want to say she attended Corey Feldman's 50th birthday, and I was going 50. I was like going, wow, I grew up as kids with you guys doing these movies. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's like that's why Corey Feldman called his birthday 5.0, you know, just to kind of just a little bit of distance from 50, you know, just because it's really weird that we're all turning. I'm 53, and like I feel like I kind of feel sort of healthier and more energy and more well adjusted than I ever have, you know. So there you go.
Well, you know what? Whatever you're doing it right, because you know everybody still loves you. Your fans are still loving you, and your family loves you. So, Jamison, thank you very much for carrying this lovely conversation about yourself and Waking Nightmare, and hopefully we get to do this again.
Sounds good. It was good to talk to you.
Hey, thank you.